everyone, and welcome to BunkaMania Wrestling. Today, we're going on a bit of a different direction when it comes to the wrestling talk, because we're going to be focusing a little bit on some Japanese wrestling, specifically New Japan Pro Wrestling's Battle in the Valley event, which took place, ironically, as the Elimination Chamber event from WWE was happening, which is quite a weird thing, but that's how life works its way, I suppose, in some cases. Thank you for watching today. I am the Giraffe Me, Jeremy Graves. Joining me for a little bit of New Japan Pro Wrestling-based talk is the Dekker, Dane, Mystery, Bolton. Good sir, how are you doing?
I am doing good. We've just come off our Elimination Chamber live stream review. If you haven't seen that just yet, click the link in the description below, or with the handy little link we might be putting up in the corner now.
There you go. And if you feel so inclined, do hit the subscribe button on the channel so you can be kept up to date with future videos that we will be releasing. But as mentioning, today we are focusing on the New Japan Pro Wrestling, well, pay-per-view in my case, that being Battle in the Valley. Now, full disclosure, I have seen the entire show. Ian has not, but is aware of some of the pertinent points we're going to be discussing. And we just want to have a little bit of a chat about it, quite frankly, because it is fairly newsworthy and just an interesting point of discussion. So what I'm going to do, Ian, is just going to sort of touch on a few bits and bobs here and there, because there are two main talking points that we want to focus on today, that being in relation to Jay White and Eddie Kingston, and Mercedes Moné and Kairi. So just to touch on a couple of the matches first. This being the Loser Leaves New Japan Pro Wrestling match, Jay White against Eddie Kingston. Ian, if you like chops, there are many chops in this match. There are many. So many. It would have been great if I could have heard all of them properly, but you could tell that they were leaving a mark, literally, on Jay White's chest, because Eddie Kingston did most of them. This match was... It was a very weird dynamic, because they were building up the fact that Jay White had lost the belt to Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. He'd lost the Loser Leaves Japan match to Hikuleo recently in Japan. And now, based on a radio interview a few days earlier, this match had been set up. And so it was Eddie Kingston basically just shouting at him for a lot of it, fight for New Japan, fight to stay here, what you doing, you mug, pretty much, but in an Eddie Kingston way of saying it. And this was just really hard-hitting and great fun. And there were multiple points when you thought the match was over, and it just wasn't. Being that Eddie was able to survive a hard move, or Jay White, just be it instinctively or whatever, just wouldn't be pinned. It was quite the storytelling element from a dramatic point of view. Ultimately, Jay White lost after he was pinned following a second Northern Lights bomb, which they made a point of saying on commentary that Eddie Kingston's Northern Lights bomb, is a move that like one person before this had kicked out of successfully. So that was a pretty big deal. But Eddie Kingston got the win, and Jay White ultimately was left in the ring in a quite literally almost a pile of his own spit. Because I'll tell you what, you know, JR has the phrase, this match was a slobber knocker. This match was the definition of a slobber knocker. There was a lot of slobber about the place from the hits they were doing. So, yeah, there was a post-match thing that occurred, but this does now pose the question, what next for Jay White? An obvious assumption is he's probably going to WWE, because you could imagine they could do with a personality like Jay White, and especially with the way things currently are, you could imagine Triple H might be able to think of some great things for him. Maybe he'll just take a break. Maybe it might be a little bit weird with the New Japan element, but maybe he'll just go to AEW, given he has appeared on there before. He could. It'll be interesting to see what he does next, but there's really been no clues given from what I've seen as to what that will be. But from the way Eddie Kingston was really giving him like a round of applause and really telling the crowd, show this guy some appreciation, even after he had basically called him a dick quite a bit during the match and whatnot. But he was really trying to put the emphasis on Jay White, and he got the adulation that he definitely deserved before the post-match shenanigans occurred, which I'll again touch on in a few moments. But do you have any thoughts on what next for Jay White?
With Jay White, obviously big figure in the world of New Japan, so it's a bit surreal to hear that he is pretty much done with the company. It had been rumored for some time that the contract was coming up, so the story elements are basically, yep, this is the way we're taking Jay White out of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and you've obviously done it through some good matches there. In terms of where he goes, that's the big question. I think there's a chance he could appear in either WWE or AEW. There are two paths here. I think with AEW seems more of a safer bet simply because he has been featured there before. There is some storytelling aspects with him and Adam Cole. There is stuff there, but again, and I think we have talked about this on some of our proper like podcast episodes. Sometimes going into AEW doesn't necessarily seem to guarantee like top of the card status immediately, and that's been a kind of a thing with a lot of like new arrivals to AEW, even if they come from WWE or they come from a different promotion or so forth. It's like they'll have a prominent moment, but then it's just kind of they'll be in like a kind of side feud or something like that. Unless I can't remember there being like, maybe with the exception of Danielson, I can't remember there being like a debut and they're already into like a top feud for like the world championship, or mixing it up straight away with the world championship, because Danielson came in and then they had like the 30-minute match at Grand Slam with Omega, and that ended in a draw. So it's like, okay, so it's like, other than that, I cannot off the top of my head remember anyone else from AEW coming in and just immediately being inserted into like a very high profile position. And yes, you can make the argument of, oh, it might be, it's the way to build them up and so forth. But I think AEW fans are a lot more knowledgeable of the wrestling landscape than I would say the casual WWE fan. So there is already a bit of knowledge there. So if you just bring in Jay White to start a random feud of maybe the Jericho Appreciation Society or something like that, it's not necessarily going to kind of set the world on fire. Yeah, sure, it'll be cool to see Jay White in AEW again, but it's not going. You'll be thinking this guy was the IWGP champion for quite a while. Why is he not going straight after the world championship? Well, obviously you can't mix it with MGF because obviously he's a heel and that's it. But then you got two heels. You could try and turn him sort of babyface in a way. So there's that. WWE poses more of an interesting possibility because of where we are going with WWE in terms of storylines, in terms of performers there at the moment. Obviously, Cody went from AEW to WWE around this point last year, just ahead of Mania. If Cody's going to take the belts off Roman, and you want to present this new, exciting landscape of challengers and new characters that are entering the fray, wanting a piece of the Universal or the WWE Championship, make a big mark. Make it like, not literally a mark, but make a big statement and just kind of go, the Raw after Mania, Cody's celebrating, out comes Jay White saying, oh yeah, I found a new place and I want your belts. And you've got a nice little feud there. It's like, it kind of works. And again, I think some of the more diehard wrestling fans within WWE fan base will know who Jay White is, and there will be a good opportunity to kind of build him up inside of WWE's universe. Case in point, AJ Styles came in number 3 at the Rumble. 30 minutes later, within 6 7 months, he was WWE champion. So it's like there's a possibility there. Where he goes, I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise me if he were to go to WWE. It wouldn't surprise me if he was just out of the limelight for about a month or so. Kind of very much just you know what? Take a few weeks off, you've earned it type thing. Especially after that beating from Eddie Kingston, you really have, trust me. Part of me wonders if he'll basically just be inserted into like the quote-unquote WWE Bullet Club, like the OC and all that lot. It's a very easy direction to go in. Part of me even thinks if he ends up doing sort of like in a way like a reverse Scott Hall, in that he goes to WWE and says, some of you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Type thing. It could be very interesting and almost make it like an invasion type thing.
Or basically, it's kind of like, because I think a couple other members of the club's contracts in New Japan are coming up. I think Tama Tonga, his contract's coming up very soon. So
yeah, Tama Tonga is leaning into that from what I've heard, because he's kind of outright said in New Japan interviews, hey, I want to stick around, but they're calling. Like, he's not denying it, so they're playing into it. And Hikuleo, given that he won the Loser Leaves Japan match, one would assume he might be staying on for a bit longer if he's not already signed for at least another year.
But from a storytelling aspect, I mean, it works. It works in both ways in AEW and it works in WWE. But I think from a WWE aspect, if Jay White came in and was put into with the club, and they just rebrand the club as this even more badass unit of Styles, White, the Good Brothers. I think Mia Yim is still kind of affiliated with the OC in a way, and really start to build that faction to a degree, like the Judgment Day. It's kind of like, oh, cool. Because I kind of think if Rhea wins the belt from Charlotte, I have a sense that Judgment Day is moving to SmackDown. So you need another like dominant faction to take over. Obviously, there's the rumors of the Hurt Business, but if the OC rebranded with more members of the Bullet Club now in WWE, that's quite exciting. I like that. But then in AEW, you play with the Bucks history, you play with Kenny history, you play with Hangman's history in Bullet Club as well. So there's so many sort of things. And again, Cody's also ex Bullet Club, so it works either way. So I think there's potential there.
I do think, though, he will not go under the nickname of Switchblade, because I think that might cause problems with some sponsors. Someone will get annoyed, is what I'm trying to imply. You know what corporate's like, in many ways. So what happened after the match that I alluded to? So Jay White was kind of taking in the adulation from the crowd, and suddenly someone comes running down the aisle, and it's David Finlay, who has been around New Japan for quite a while, sort of, I will say, lingering for a bit. He had a good tag team with Juice Robinson going for a while, but hasn't been doing too much. And he came down and attacked Jay White. He basically just knocked him out by the back of the head using a shillelagh, and then cut what you could probably call a sort of shoot promo, if you will, basically saying he's sick and tired of having to wait around to be given a chance, so he's going to take it. And basically said to Jay White, F your Switchblade era, this is my time now. And just put New Japan on notice. So David Finlay is being elevated, which usually when someone big is leaving and there's kind of someone clearly put in front of you as, you should pay attention to this guy. David Finlay's being given the ball. David Finlay isn't great. He is an awesome wrestler. I was going to say an awesome wrestler. He is. I don't know why I was going to change that. His promo was really interesting as well, like the way he delivered it. Now, here's a dumb thing to say. If Bullet Club is going to continue in the year 2023 in Japan, one assumes David Finlay could just become the new leader. It wouldn't be the most outrageous thing in the world, given what's happened. But he's kind of implied he wants to be all about himself. So it might be interesting to see where that goes. But that was interesting, though the crowd were not at all happy he attacked Jay White because they wanted to give him a proper send-off. And Jay White was ultimately just carried out, having been knocked out. The IWGP Women's Championship match. Kairi looking to defend on her second defense the championship against the debuting Mercedes Moné. Moné, however you want to pronounce it. They were going with Moné. They were going with Moné.
Moné.
So the thing about this match, first of all, it was flipping great. It was so damn good. The presentation of Mercedes and Kairi, for that matter, where they were treated like proper A-tier level stars. It was really well done. Mercedes had like a whole dance troupe on stage, like kind of dancing and then moving out the way to reveal her, if you will, which was really good fun. What was a really touching tribute, and admittedly this name may not be familiar to you, but there was a Japanese female wrestler who tragically took her own life a few years ago by the name of Hana Kimura, that really sent shockwaves around the wrestling world when that happened. Mercedes' ring gear was a tribute to her. So it was really, really cool, like the way she done that. And it just kind of added to that feeling of, okay, you're proper up for this and you really want to make a good impression here. And that's not to say she never wouldn't have done, but I'm sure some cynical people out there are going, why is she doing that? Is she just going to do a match against an old WWE person she knows? No, these two beat the crap out of each other. This was a really hard-hitting match, just really, really well done. Very early on, though they did not call it by name, which I guess there might be a trademark issue of that. Moné got the bank statement on Kairi and nearly sort of got a quick submission. but they very specifically didn't call it anything even like, she's making a statement. They didn't do anything like that. They just called it, the submission hold is in. And I just kind of thought, okay, you clearly didn't get a memo as to what to call it, did you? But that is what it is. Really hard-hitting match. They went to the floor as well, brawled a little bit. There was some big moves just in general. Mercedes was really into this, and Kairi was not holding back. There was one chop to her chest where you could kind of tell Mercedes all but just was going, like, F. She just wanted to say it really loudly, but didn't. They ended up going up to the entrance ramp and did a massive spot where Mercedes got powerbombed through a table as well, just at the entrance ramp. It looked like she cracked her head on the ground, but I guess she's fine. One of the biggest pops of the match was Mercedes nearly got a quick pin because out of nowhere, she hit a belly-to-belly suplex. Now, who do we know that she knows is a good friend of hers who does a belly-to-belly? And it sounds like Bayley was in the crowd because there was a moment when Mercedes pointed to someone, and I kind of thought, I bet she's there. And there's a moment where, as Mercedes is leaving, you can kind of see Bayley in the background if you really look closely enough on TV. So I think she was there. But I implore anyone, go out of your way to see this match. It is so worth seeing what non-WWE Mercedes Moné is going to be like as a litmus test. She ultimately won the championship, hitting her move, which I think is called I think it's the Moneymaker. I can't remember the name on top of my head. I might have to double check that quickly. But she hit it perfectly, kind of out of nowhere. But in the context of the match, both of them had beat the crap out of each other. It was just really, really well executed. And she got the win. Kairi was getting amazing reactions as well. The crowd weren't just like not reacting to her. She, again, was a big star. And there's an element where this is the Kairi you really wanted to see in WWE, but you didn't get the chance to. And it's almost like a what-if match from WWE, because they alluded on commentary they had one match prior, and it ended via DQ. And obviously they were kind of going, hopefully that won't happen here, which is a little bit fun. But yeah, if you get a chance, mate, go out of your way to watch this match, because it was so damn good.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a very good match. In terms of, obviously, the chemistry in ring, obviously Kairi and Moné try not to go to the WWE name instantaneously there.
Yeah, but I think I'm going to default to Mercedes. That seems to be the easy way to get around it.
Moné, Mercedes Moné. There you go. No, I mean, obviously they were very talented wrestlers in WWE. I think the thing is, obviously WWE has that sort of more, I wouldn't say it's a restrained style, but obviously in terms of kind of not going overly aggressive in matches and so forth, maybe because of the TVPG sort of rating, maybe you can understand why it wasn't. It's kind of a massive drastic change of how they are fighting now outside of WWE, because they have that freedom, and that's always a nice thing. It's like, again, it's like a slight comparison. It's the rebirth of Jon Moxley. Obviously, we knew him as Wacky Dean Ambrose for so long in WWE. When he moved over to AEW and started doing independent stuff like New Japan stuff, it's like a complete reinvention of who he was as a performer. It's like gone was kind of like the silliness. It's all about the visceral sort of fury, the like violence. He was just violent by design. In AEW and in New Japan, he still continues to be with the Blackpool Combat Club, but it's a complete. It's like you would. It's like if you saw Dean Ambrose back in like 2015, you think, he wouldn't be capable of that sort of stuff. It's astonishing what happens. So it's a good sign for Moné. If this is her first match and she's able to kind of really kind of step out of the WWE standard of doing a match, it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I've just double checked as well. The match went roughly 25 minutes as well. So it's a decent, like, proper chunky match, if you will. And towards the end of the match as well, because there was like a DDT where it looked like it legit killed Mercedes for a moment because of the way she landed from the camera angle. But it's like, clearly she's fine because she got up. But there was an excellent counter to Kairi's insane elbow where Mercedes was just on the ground and she just put her legs straight up in the air and Kairi's elbow just went like bam, straight into the legs. And it looked brutal, but it was so damn good. Like I say, really worth going out of your way. And you could tell that Mercedes was genuinely so happy when the match was over. There was just that feeling. You know, you can just, again, we said this before, you can tell when someone's genuinely happy. And just the reaction she was getting, just everything around it was great. The two wrestlers embraced after. Kairi basically put the belt around her waist as well. So they kind of did a proper handing over of the torch, even though the belt's only been around since November, but you know what I mean. No word in terms of what challenger might be next for Mercedes, because no one really knows how long she's going to be in Japan for, or in the Japanese system, if you will. But that was the event. And overall, if you want to check it out, definitely worth it. It's £20 on Fight TV. And like I say, by the sound of it, you'll ultimately be able to see the matches be sort of syndicated out, if you will, via New Japan Strong episodes on New Japan World. So you should be able to watch those at some point anyway. But if you want to check out the pay-per-view, it is on Fight TV for about £20 GBP. Not sure what that is in US money. Apologies to US viewers. But I say it's definitely worth checking out, not least just for the Mercedes match. Like, it's just damn good fun. But overall, a very, very fun show to check out and well worth the time. So with that being said, good sir, did you have any other thoughts and questions about the show, or any inklings or anything I may have, any questions, I guess, in relation to what I saw that I may have mentioned but didn't elaborate on?
No, I've got nothing really more to add. It'll be interesting to see what happens in regards to Jay White, and yeah, it's a good start for Mercedes Moné in New Japan. So we'll have to see what unfolds.
Definitely, and it'll be interesting to see long-term how she's integrated into the all-female promotion Stardom, which is owned by the same parent company as New Japan is owned by, so that's kind of why there's the crossover element, and now why there's a IWGP women's title. So it'll be interesting to see how her Stardom-specific involvement is integrated. But no doubt, we will gradually hear more about that as we do. Also worth mentioning, I've not seen it yet, but apparently there is kind of like a behind-the-scenes documentary or something going around of following Mercedes in Japan. I'm not sure if it's like on her own YouTube channel or maybe the New Japan World service, as it were, but apparently that is doing the rounds. So if we can find the link by the time this video is live, we'll put it in the description for you to see. But I'm curious to check that out as well, because that seems like it might be a fun watch. With that being said, everybody, thank you very much for checking out this video. If you enjoyed it, why not hit that subscribe button so you can be kept up to date for when more BunkaMania videos go live? And if you feel so inclined, why not hit the like button or leave a comment below? With that being said, from myself, Jeremy Graves, from him, the Dekker Dane, Mr. Ian Bolton, we've been BunkaMania UK. Until next time, take care.